Okay, today we're diving into a genuinely dark yet absolutely fascinating facet of human and actually animal nature: vengeance. We're going to unpack three of history's most extreme, bizarre, and relentless tales of revenge. Now, these aren't your typical playground grudges. We're talking about meticulously calculated, deeply personal, and frankly disturbing lengths that humans, and even a massive predator, have gone to just to settle a score.
All right, Act 1. The Ninja and the Saw. Okay, let's set the scene. Picture this. It's the 1570s in Japan. Absolute chaos. It's an era of total war, shattered alliances, and just a ruthless scramble for absolute control. Rising from this chaos was a warlord named Oda Nobunaga, and his secret weapon, the Tanegashima. This was an early matchlocked gun, and it was a real game changer. He equipped his army with these and completely devastated traditional samurai forces. I mean, they couldn't even draw their swords before being gunned down. Nobunaga used this overwhelming power to absolutely crush rival factions, including the Rokaku clan. He completely disgraced their leader, driving him right out of his lands. Enraged and stripped of literally everything, this former leader dedicated his life to one single goal: revenge. He wanted Nobunaga dead, and he wanted him killed by the exact same weapon he used to rise to power. So he hired a master ninja and crack shot named Sugatani Zenjubo to do the job.
Now, this brings us to the actual assassination attempt. Sugatani is waiting in ambush at this incredibly treacherous mountain pass, knowing Nobunaga will be riding through. The ninja readies his rifle, waits until his target is just 20 meters away, pulls the trigger, and he completely misses. I mean, a total miss. Sugatani scrambles, grabs his second prepared rifle, and fires again. This time, the lead ball actually hits, but it merely glances off Nobunaga's armor. It knocks him down, sure, but leaves him with little more than a scratch. Sugatani flees for his life, leaving behind a very angry and very, very patient warlord. Well, Nobunaga doesn't just get mad, he gets terrifyingly calculated. While he's hunting down the ninja, he decides to exact vengeance on the Izaya clan. These were allies who had betrayed him and actually forced him into that dangerous mountain pass in the first place. He hunts them down, forces them into battle for 3 years until they are completely wiped from history. And get this, he reportedly turned the clan leaders' lacquered skulls into drinking cups. Yeah, that's the kind of guy Sugatani the ninja is hiding from. Eventually, though, the ninja's luck runs out. He's captured hiding in a Buddhist monastery and brought right before Nobunaga. Nobunaga needed a punishment that felt satisfying. So, step 1, Sugatani is buried alive up to his neck in the dirt right by a main road. Step 2, Nobunaga's men place a blunt, yes blunt, bamboo saw on the ground right next to his head. And step 3, a sign is driven into the ground actively inviting anyone walking past to pick up the saw and just take a cut. Over 3 agonizing days, Sugatani's head was slowly sawed off by hundreds of random passers-by. It's absolutely brutal, and it brilliantly illustrates Nobunaga's capacity for terrifyingly creative retribution. But wait, the grudge doesn't even end there. 159 years later, Nobunaga's son finally tracked down the son of the disgraced clan leader who had originally hired the ninja. This new target was hiding in a Buddhist temple. Now, despite this guy having zero direct involvement in the original assassination attempt, Nobunaga's son burned the entire temple to the ground. He took 150 innocent lives in the process, just to finish his father's score. All right, moving on to Act 2, the tiger's stolen meal. For a second act, we're shifting gears from calculated military torture to a tense, literal survival thriller. Because, as it turns out, humans aren't the only ones capable of holding a deadly grudge. We're heading to 1997, deep in the frozen outskirts of Siberia. The fall of the Soviet Union had hit this region really hard. Vladimir Markov was out of work, hungry, and had turned to illegal poaching just to survive. One cold December evening, starving and desperate, Markov stumbles upon a freshly killed boar. But all around it in the snow are these massive paw prints, practically the size of his hand. Markov knows a colossal Siberian tiger made this kill. But hunger kind of overrides logic here. He quarters the boar's hind legs, slings that meat over his shoulder, and takes it to eat in trade. He literally stole a meal from an apex predator. Huge mistake. Now, as Markov treks back home with the stolen meat, there's this chilling local saying you've got to keep in mind. A tiger will see you 100 times before you see him once. Markov had unknowingly sealed his fate. He had absolutely no idea he was already being tracked. And this leads to an incredibly tense nighttime standoff.
Inside his cabin, Markov is terrified. He hears his beehives crashing down outside, heavy footsteps circling the walls. And when a giant yellow eye appears at a small hole he'd cut in the wall, Markov thrusts his gun through and just shoots wildly into the dark. But the tiger? The tiger is totally methodical. It quietly circled the cabin, tested the defenses, and only after being grazed by Markov's desperate shot did it let out a roar and retreat into the brush. But listen, the tiger wasn't leaving for good. It was just changing its strategy.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the stark contrast between these two the very next day. Markov flees to a friend's house, but no one, not his friends, not the rough guys at the logging camp, nobody wants to help him face this beast. He is completely isolated, forced to walk back home alone in the dark. Meanwhile, the tiger has transformed from an animal just looking for a meal into a terrifyingly patient stalker. It completely destroyed Markov's outhouse. It tore to shreds literally anything in the cabin carrying Markov's scent. And then it just waited there for 2 full days, waiting for the poacher to return. So when Markov finally comes back, this 500-pound tiger ambushes him. Markov actually manages to get one shot off, hitting the tiger's leg, but the beast easily overpowers him. The aftermath was incredibly gruesome. Investigators found a trail of blood, dismembered dog paws, and finally, Markov's headless, eviscerated body. But what makes this truly chilling is that the lead investigator, a guy named Trush, noted that tigers usually only attack humans in self-defense, but the evidence here, it was overwhelmingly clear. Trush's official report stated, this tiger specifically ignored all other humans in the area to hunt and kill Markov strictly for revenge. So we've seen the revenge of a warlord and the revenge of a beast. But that leads us to a pretty bizarre historical question. How do you exact revenge on a guy who is already dead? Let's find out in Act 3, the execution of a corpse. We're hopping over to 17th century England for what has to be the ultimate escalation of absurdity in the pursuit of payback. So during the English Civil War, a Puritan military genius named Oliver Cromwell led the parliamentary forces to a massive victory against the monarchy. And in 1649, Cromwell achieved the unthinkable. He had King Charles I publicly beheaded. Cromwell eventually took the title of Lord Protector, but as so often happens, the liberator quickly became a tyrant. He led a genocidal campaign in Ireland, causing mass famine. He silenced his political opponents with violence, instituted martial law, and because of his super strict Puritan beliefs, he actually canceled Christmas. Yes, literally canceled Christmas. Cromwell ruled with an iron fist right up until his death in 1658, passing away peacefully and seemingly getting away with the whole shebang scot-free. But his successor couldn't hold the government together. The experimental republic collapsed, and in 1660, Parliament invited the executed king's son, Charles II, back from exile to reclaim the throne. Charles was dubbed the Merry Monarch. He brought back the arts, he uncanceled Christmas, and he graciously issued this sweeping pardon for nearly everyone involved in the Civil War. Everyone, that is, except the men who killed his father.
You see, Charles II hated Oliver Cromwell more than anyone else in the world. And the fact that Cromwell was already dead, well, to Charles that was just a minor logistical inconvenience. On the exact 12th anniversary of his father's execution, Charles ordered Cromwell's body to be exhumed from Westminster Abbey. He had this dried-up corpse dragged all the way to Tyburn and publicly hanged. Then, as evening fell, the executioners sloppily chopped the head off the corpse, and finally they shoved Cromwell's head onto a 20-foot pole and mounted it above Westminster Hall as a very grim warning. And this brilliantly illustrates just how absurd vengeance can become, because Cromwell's severed head went on this wild 300-year misadventure. It sat up on that roof spike for 24 years, until a storm blew it off in 1685, where it was immediately stolen by a security guard. Fast forward to the 1700s, and it's circulating as an oddity in museums. It was even owned by a failed comedian named Samuel Russell, who literally tossed it around like a football at drinking parties. It passed through the hands of investors and private collectors until the 1930s, when scientists actually tested it and confirmed, yep, it was indeed the authentic head of the former Lord Protector. Finally, in 1960, after 3 full centuries separated from its body, the head was secretly buried at the University of Cambridge. Talk about the ultimate bizarre punchline to a king's unyielding vengeance. Okay, let's wrap this up with our conclusion: the cost of retribution. So, what do these 3 distinct, incredibly intense case studies actually reveal to us about the nature of holding a grudge? Well, Vengeance is clearly this relentless force that transcends time, logic, and, as we saw, even species. Whether it's a Japanese warlord actively inviting the public to saw a man's neck over 3 days, a massive Siberian tiger meticulously destroying a poacher's scent before launching a targeted strike, or an English king deciding that death itself isn't a good enough excuse to escape a beheading, the desire for retribution pushes the Avenger into profound extremes. It fundamentally changes them.
So the crucial point is this, and I want to leave you pondering this question. Does the satisfaction of revenge ever truly outweigh the horrors committed to achieve it? When you look at the collateral damage, 150 innocents burned in a temple, a desperate man torn apart in the snow, a whole nation dragging a dried corpse through the streets, the toxic legacy of settling a score often becomes far, far darker than the original crime itself. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time as we continue to unpack the most fascinating stories history has to offer.